Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining the stream, for your attention. Many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on or will watch this video after the stream. Today is 23rd of May. Now it's 7 o'clock in the evening, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find this episode informative and useful. Before I start a news segment itself, let me just notice that after news segment, if I will receive any questions or the comments that members of our community might want to be highlighted in this stream, if I receive these comments or the questions through support platforms, PayPal, Boosty, or from members of our community on Patreon and Boosty, then I will definitely pay attention to it after news segment. Today I have one question from a member of Patreon community on which I will answer after the news. And I guess that's about it. Let's start today's live stream. Unfortunately, I was unable to make a live stream this morning because I had guests, by the way, and I was unable to organize a morning news live stream, but I'm here now. And let's start with the good news for Russia and Russian armed forces, which is that, according to Russian Defense Ministry's announcement, settlement of Radkovka was liberated in Kupiansk area, in the Kupiansk region. This is Kharkov region. That settlement itself is located on the northern-western side of Kupiansk city. Let me show you on the map, dear friends. This is Kupiansk, quite a large town, and this is the Radkovka, village. And if you take a look at the map, it is becoming clear that Russian troops are kind of encircling Kupiansk from northern-western side, and maybe if this movement of Russian troops continues in the very same manner, soon we will see Russian troops taking control over their Moskovka settlement and Sobolevka also. Maybe Russian troops, that's the plan, that Russian troops have to encircle Kupiansk from northern-western side. Significant progress of the Russian armed forces in this direction, of course, and this is not all. According to Russian Defense Ministry, Russian military is also liberated settlement of Otradnae in the DPR. Let me show you this settlement too. This settlement is on southern western flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration. And, well, let me find it first, dear friends. Otradnae, is not it? Otradnae settlement, so it must be somewhere here, but right now I cannot even find it, by the way, which is unfortunate, but okay, it's somewhere here on in a DPR. Oh, okay, that's it, by the way. This is Otradnae, I find it finally. Okay. So much for so-called stalemate, isn't it? That Western propaganda loves to tell their public and Western public figures too. It's a stalemate. Nothing is happening. No movement. Sides reached stalemate. And meanwhile, literally on daily basis, we are receiving reports about progress of the Russian armed forces. And every single month, dozens of settlements are liberated by Russian troops. That's been said, dear friends, let's continue with this news, which is also of big importance because, well, Moscow and Kiev started a record prisoner swap. Russia and Ukraine have begun swap of prisoners of the war as a part of a major exchange agreed last week in Istanbul. Two sides each returned 270 soldiers and 120 civilians on Friday. And among civilians that were freed by Kiev regime are people that were kidnapped, basically, and taken hostage from Kursk region, according to some reports that I see. And this is a first round of exchange, POW exchange, according to agreement that was reached in Istanbul. 1,000 formula, 1,000 on 1,000 troops, exchange was agreed, and soon, I guess, hundreds or more POWs will be released. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that Foreign Minister of Russian Federation Serge Lavrov spoke about preparations for the new negotiations with Ukraine. We have some statements from Lavrov, and I will go through it for little more detail. So, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, speaking at the conference Historical Southern Russian Lands, National Identity and Self-Determination of Peoples, spoke about preparations for a new round of negotiations with Ukraine. Under a peaceful settlement, Lavrov made several key points. Russia has always emphasized that it is ready for peace negotiations with Ukraine and has not shied away from contacts. Work on the memorandum on Ukrainian settlement from the Russian side is already at the advanced stage, and we all remember that during or after recent phone conversation between US and Russian presidents, Vladimir Putin made statement that memorandum will be prepared by sides, Moscow and Kiev, and sign up. Okay, works on the Russian part is on advanced stage on this memorandum. In a drafting memorandum, Russia proceeds from the fundamental issues and the root causes of the conflict. The most important thing now is to prepare a treaty that will ensure long-term peace without creating security threats for Russia. And Lavrov also said that Russia does not want to quarrel with anyone and advocates working honestly with respect for the UN Charter. With every single day of work, especially in recent years in the Ukraine direction, I am convinced again and again that our cause is just, he said. About the second round of negotiations, Lavrov also made a few points. There will be a second round of negotiations. Kiev has confirmed this, and that this is already a positive development. The dates and location of the second meeting have not yet been determined. I remind you, dear friends, that Vatican was mentioned by Western media originally as a potential place where direct talks between Moscow and Kiev might take place. And Lavrov also mentioned the Vatican. The scenario of holding next round of talks in the Vatican is unrealistic, according to a Russian foreign minister. We have a quote here: imagine the Vatican as a venue for negotiations. It is a little inelegant, I would say, when Orthodox countries discuss issues related to eliminating root causes of their Catholic platform, on a Catholic platform. I think that for the Vatican itself, it will not be very comfortable to receive delegations from two Orthodox countries under these conditions. Well, he has a point here. Two Orthodox countries are, at least formally, Ukrainian people still Orthodox Christians, although many residents of Kiev-controlled territory commit unforgivable sin, and they join this sect, criminal organization, basically, that was created in Ukraine under the name of Orthodox Church. They are criminals, all of them, by the way. They are not Orthodox. They have nothing to do with Orthodoxy. They committed sin and will never be forgiven for that. But Russia is an Orthodox country for sure. Majority of Russians, and Orthodoxy has a huge role, obviously. And I also find it kind of strange. Why should Moscow negotiate peace in the Vatican, by the way, in the center of Catholic Christianity? I see no point in that. On the U.S. position, Lavrov stated that Ukraine expected U.S. support to be eternal, but Trump's position is not that this is not his war. Okay, but still, U.S. continues to supply weapons, by the way, and share intelligence with the key regimes Kiev regime and its forces, and therefore US is still directly involved in this war against Russia. It is what it is. Statements are interesting, but real politics, that's what matters. And unfortunately, US is still engaged directly in this war against Russia that globalists and West, collective West is waging. The current US administration is guided by national interests when building a dialogue with Russia. Okay, that would be good if true, but yet again, we should all keep in mind that even in current administration, by the way, which won the elections based on a slogan "America First," we are seeing neocon elements, right? And neocons were never for people and never for America. They have very different agendas, right? And neocons are basically allies of globalists. So therefore, I would not be this I would not go this far to say that current US administration is guided by national interests. Some people in administration, yes, most likely, but others, definitely not. United States, unlike the Europeans, openly talk about the need to discuss the territorial issue of Ukraine. Okay, it is important to not to indulge in illusions and to understand that there have been a case when Americans change their positions. Okay, this is life. You can't escape it, but you certainly have to take into account, and we, of course, take it into account when planning our steps. Lavrov said in regards to shifts in U.S. Policies that occurs quite often. By the way, basically, every other administration, quite often undoes whatever was done by previous administrations, agreements, and so on. And this continues for decades and decades. So it is definitely almost impossible to have any trust in U.S. leadership ever, because of the behavior that they are demonstrating yet again, decade after decade after decade. So it's their political class, if we can even call it a class, by the way. On Zelensky's legitimacy, Lavrov went to say that Moscow does not refuse contacts with the head of Kiev regime and his administration. The question of Zelensky's legitimacy will be decisive when signing their settlement documents. Holding elections would be their optimal solution to the question of who can sign the peace agreement on the Ukrainian side. And this is what Lavrov said, and we have a quote here. Because if those whose legitimacy, to put it mildly, no longer convinces anyone sign, then their successors may call into question the agreements reached, Lavrov said, and he has a point. I mean, Zelensky may sign up for whatever right now, but next regime might say in Kiev that, what, Zelensky was not legit. Everyone knew it, and you still signed something with him, so go deal with him. But his sign means nothing. He was illegit, right? They're going to be always this risk. So therefore, Moscow's position is quite clear. Zelensky's legitimacy is a big deal, and one way or another, but this topic has to be resolved, preferably with elections. On human rights in Ukraine, Lavrov stated that Russia cannot leave Russian-speaking people in Ukraine under the rule of the current regime. This would be a great crime. I agree 100%, by the way, on that. European countries have never once uttered the word human rights in relation to what is happening in Ukraine. And this is also true, by the way, which demonstrates that all these talks on part of globalist and globalist puppet regimes in Europe, so-called European elites, about democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and all the rest, it's just the games, by the way. They don't care about any of it, because they never, ever criticize terrorist regime in Kiev for tremendous crimes that they were committing against people on daily basis, and especially against Russian people, Russian speakers. But not just, by the way. I mean, Hungary has bigger issues with Ukraine exactly for that reason, that Hungarian minorities being suppressed and treated very badly. But where is the Brussels, by the way? Where is the elites of UK and France and Germany that love to talk about freedom and democracy and human rights? Did they ever criticize this terrorist regime in Kiev? Never. Because they just don't care, man. They are just fooling their own fellow citizens in their countries that they are good people and they care about some good stuff. In reality, they are all scum of humanity. That's what they are, man. So this is the statements of Lavrov. Quite interesting statements, I will say. And so I mentioned, isn't it, just a couple of minutes ago, that in US leadership, US administration, there are different people. Some people may be really America First type of people, but others definitely not, especially neocons. And on this very matter, I shared this information on the Telegram and Twitter X page of mine today, that Trump is not for sanctions against Russia, while Rubio, for example, head of State Department, is pushing for a Graham bill. And Graham is, of course, but this disgrace of humanity, senator in US, and shame on US also, same time. I mean, how anybody in a straight mind can ever support this garbage to be representative of any party or any side in US, by the way? I don't know. I don't get it. What is wrong with people from whichever state this garbage element being elected? I mean, what is wrong with those people? Do they have even like 2 cells in the brain? Are they completely stupid and disgrace also of humanity? I don't know, but this Graham and other psychopaths in Senate prepared a bill to sanction Russia more, and also to to introduce secondary sanctions against all the countries that are cooperating with Russia. And Marco Rubio, as a puppet of globalists, I will say also, and the neocons, by the way, is in support of this. And that's why I'm saying either Trump will get rid of these garbage people in administration, like Rubio, like Kellogg, and others, or they're going to screw him up. Neocons, by the way, that are allies of globalists, going to screw Trump big time, and US also, if these criminals will maintain position of power. So yes, they are for the sanctions. Okay, let them introduce, by the way. I'm so sick and tired of hearing these threats about sanctions from West. Just bring it on, man. Bring it on. We just don't give a damn about you and your sanctions. That's the only appropriate answer that we can have from here, from Russia. Anyways, RT is reporting that Ukraine wants fixed percentage of EU's GDP. Okay, why not? Really, why not? European taxpayers are happy to, give some money to Ukraine. They always were, seems like. So Ukraine has proposed that EU member states allocate a fixed portion of their GDP to fund the country's armed forces. The bloc's leaders have pledged continued military support for Kyiv despite a policy change by the US President Donald Trump, who aims to mediate the truce. Finance Minister of the so-called Ukraine, a creation of Bolsheviks, Sergei Marchenko, outlined their proposal during this week's G7 finance ministers meeting in Canada. According to a Facebook post published on Thursday, we have quote here: "What we are proposing is a partner participation in funding Ukraine's armed forces, which would effectively integrate into their Europe's defense structure," he wrote. Marchenko added that their cost would represent only a small share of the EU's GDP and could be distributed among countries willing to join the initiative. Kiev wants to launch their new scheme in 2026 with their contributions counted towards NATO defense spending targets. So yes, okay, they're gonna allocate. I don't know, another billions and billions of euros for Ukraine, and they're going to say that this is for NATO's defense capabilities. And people in Europe, by the way, majority that are in deep sleep will say nothing, literally nothing, by the way, because they don't understand anything at this point. They've been so brainwashed, by the way, that they literally don't understand anything, right? They've been turned into freaking zombies, man. Majority, I'm talking about. There is informed minority that knows perfectly well what the hell is going on and opposing these crazies that are in charge of European countries, but they are minority. They are unable to influence much, really. Anyways, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, Partnov, that this is a person, former aide of ex-Ukrainian President Yanukovych, that was gunned down in Spain, by the way, a couple of days ago. I reported about it. This person allegedly traveled to Kiev and had some meetings with high-ranking officials, by the way, and this was claimed by Anatoly Shary, Ukrainian blogger, politician, public figure in exile. So Ukrainian blogger Anatoly Shary claims that Andrei Partnov, a former advisor to ex-Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, who was shot dead in Spain on Wednesday, traveled to Kiev last weekend, where he met with Vladimir Zelensky, none other than Vladimir Zelensky, by the way, and his chief of staff, Andrei Yermak. Andrei Partnov, who was killed in Madrid, according to my information, Shary stated, spent Saturday and Sunday in Kiev. He met with Zelensky and the head of the presidential office, Yermak. He returned to Spain on Monday. Shary wrote on Friday in his Telegram channel. Later, Shary wrote that in Kiev, Partnov might have made some demands to Zelensky and Yermak related to compromising materials he had. According to blogger, a number of Ukrainian politicians also knew about the meeting. Their names are not disclosed yet. In this regard, Shary appealed to European law enforcement agencies to check the information about Partnov crossing the Ukrainian border. And, you think what authorities in Spain did, by the way, in regards to this clearly political killing, clearly terrorist act on part of Zelensky's regime? He was gunned down by Zelensky's people, by the way. Zelensky's so-called secret services. There can be no doubts about that. And you think what authorities did in Spain? They classified all this information, by the way, everything. So Madrid court classifies probe into former Ukrainian MPs murder, according to media. Top court in Madrid region has placed a secrecy order on an investigation into killing of former Ukrainian lawmaker and aider to ex-Ukrainian president Andrei Partnov, according to local news reports. And question is why? Why this secrecy, by the way? Maybe because investigators already know that behind this killing is a Kiev regime and Kiev regime secret services that were probably operating with assistance of British secret services, MI6, most likely, by the way. Maybe that is the reason why this case was classified. I mean, what is your take, dear friends? You tell me what you think, but I think answer is clear. They are hiding whatever findings they have, because they don't want to, jeopardize geopolitical agenda of the globalists, right? And Spain is controlled by globalist puppets, right? And Zelensky's regime is, of course, a proxy of globalists. So it is what it is, man. This person and their friends, maybe some members of our community, or maybe majority of our community, never ever heard about Andrei Partnov. But according to information that is available in open sources, this person was known in Ukraine not so much as a politician, although he was an MP at one point, but as a deal maker, as a broker between different parties. He was working, as I already mentioned, as aide of Yanukovych, advisor to him, and he knew just about everybody, and he had some relationships with just about everybody in Ukraine, from oligarchs and politicians to public figures and the rest of it, right? And reports are, as I said in my previous updates, that he was planning to publish certain documents that will illustrate corruption of Zelensky and his criminal associates. And also, same time, he was engaged in preparations of their in works to basically unite certain groups, influential groups from Ukraine and also inside Ukraine to oppose Zelensky and his regime. And he was gunned down by Zelensky. That's what is happening, by the way. And he was a quite effective broker, by the way, quite effective deal maker, according to reports. And that's why Zelensky was afraid that he might not just publish some documents to discredit Zelensky, to illustrate basically Zelensky and his associates for being engaged in numerous crimes. But Zelensky was also afraid of these skills that this person had to basically, bring together certain groups, influential groups that otherwise would struggle to find common ground. He is a good organizer. He was a good organizer, and he was gunned down for that and for whatever information he had on Zelensky. RIA Novosti is reporting that, air defense systems on duty intercepted almost 1,200 Ukrainian drones from May 20 to May 23. I reported in previous updates that Turkey regime was launching drones wave after wave after wave, seems like without break. And quite an impressive number, isn't it? That in this time frame from 20 to 23rd, 1,177 drones were intercepted by Russian air defense systems. 788 of these drones were shot down by air defense systems outside those special military operation zones. So these drones were intercepted when they crossed the border and were in Russian airspace. And also, by the way, on the matter of these drones, according to today's update of Defense Ministry overnight, early hours of this morning, another 112 drones were intercepted. So I don't know how many drones Kiev regime has left. Recently, I saw a question of one of the members of our community. I mean, how Kiev regime is managing to launch so many drones. And it's not just Kiev regime, by the way, it's almost every NATO member state, right, that is engaged in this proxy war against Russia, and they are supplying with these drones, Kiev regime. That's why they are capable to launch hundreds of these drones on daily basis. It's a NATO, by the way. It's not just Kiev regime. One should always keep that in mind, that Kiev regime is just a proxy of the NATO, right? Proxy of the globalists and their collective West. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Trump threatens EU with their 50% tariffs. He was in a bad mood, I guess, today. I saw his post, by the way, about these tariffs. I shared, I believe, on my Telegram and Twitter X page that post. So US President Donald Trump said on a True Social network that trade talks with the EU are leading nowhere, so he is proposing to impose 50% tariffs on European goods. We have a quote from his statement. The European Union, which was created primarily to take advantage of the US in trade matters, has been very difficult to deal with. Our negotiations are going nowhere. Therefore, I propose to impose 50% tariffs on the EU from June 1st, 2025. The tariff is not charged if their products is made in the US, he wrote. And this is a big deal, obviously. This is a big deal. Maybe this is a part of his tactics to force Brussels to basically cave in. But is Brussels in a position to basically cave in with 50% tariffs and demands of US, by the way, EU market to be less aggressive for US exporters is something that you cannot agree, because they are already struggling, right? And if it comes to 50% tariffs on European goods, that will kill European economy, man. Literally, that will kill European economy, because enterprises there, businesses will, I mean, especially big businesses that are dependent on exports to US, will have no chance and no option but to move their manufacturing in US if they want to stay in the business, right? So let's see how will situation develop, but clearly Washington is on a war path when it comes to relationships between US and European Union. And right now, by the way, trade deficit is 250 billion, quite a lot, in favor of Europe, by the way. US has a 250 billion trade deficit with the EU. Meanwhile, reports are coming in that the European Commission will begin consultations today on the introduction of their sanctions against Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Sanctions are seen as a political step aiming at securing the EU's plan to phase out Russian gas imports by 2027. And one might ask, well, these pipelines already being destroyed. I mean, 3 out of 4 pipes. And what is the point to introduce sanctions on destroyed pipelines? And well, point is, dear friends, that recently, as I said quite a few times in updates, certain groups in US are working out some strategies to basically become a third party in a trade between Russia and Europe. And these groups want to invest in Nord Stream, allegedly, according to some reports, want to invest in Nord Stream pipelines, rebuild it, right? Restore damaged parts of it. Then also they want to invest in or put their hands on a pipeline network in Ukraine, which is under Kyiv control now. And they want part of a slice of Turk Stream also. And after that, they want to buy Russian gas on the Russian border and then sell it, basically resell it straight away through this pipeline network that they will have some share in, right, to European customers. And globalists obviously are not happy about it. Globalists are dreaming about destroying Russia, right? And they are not yet ready to realize that they are destroying Europe quite effectively while waging this proxy war against us, right? One day they will come to their senses. They will have no option but to face the reality and acknowledge that they lost. But that day is still far away from now. So therefore, they're still pushing their crazy agendas, right? And that's why they're gonna sanction Nord Stream pipelines to basically derail attempts on part of whatever influential forces in US are planning to get engaged and make billions basically out of thin air while becoming a third party in a trade between Russia and Europe. That's what is going on. And this is clearly a strike on US. This decision of these attempts of European bureaucrats to sanction these already destroyed pipes, by the way. And the German Chancellor is in favor of these sanctions on Nord Stream. So German Chancellor Friedrich Merz actively supports the EU plan to ban any use of Nord Stream gas pipelines and wants to block any move to revive energy trade with Russia. Financial Times reported on Friday. So, I mean, there we go. Globalists and their puppets are on the same page. They are still pushing for anything, basically, that they think might harm Russia, while in reality, all they do is, destroying basement of European economies. That's what they are doing. Few more news, dear friends. Das news agency is reporting that EU Council to discuss on May 27, depriving Hungary of what? Well, that's how bad situation is in EU, by the way, when it comes to freedoms and democracy. They love to talk about it, isn't it? Freedom and democracy. And now they want to, these European bureaucrats want to deprive voting right of Hungary, by the way, which is crazy, isn't it? So the Council of European Union will hold their hearing on May 27 on depriving Hungary of a vote under Article 7 of the Treaty on European Union, according to the agenda published on its website. Ministers will hold their hearing on Hungary as a part of Article 7 procedures triggered by the European Parliament's recent proposal of September 28. Recent proposal of September 28, 18. The program says Article 7 of the wow, this page is not working again. How interesting. So Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union allows for suspension of some rights of the community states, including the voting right of countries' representative in the EU Council over actions that run counter to their common values. So that's what is happening, by the way. Whatever the values of globalists are, Hungary's leadership is not there, not sharing those values. Hungary's leadership clearly thinks about Hungary first and the national interests of the people of Hungary, strategical interests of the people of Hungary, and therefore, globalists and their puppets in Brussels wants to punish this country and take their voting right. And you tell me what will be the point for Hungary to maintain, its place in EU? I mean, why Hungary is in EU, inside the European Union? But I mean, what for? To be harassed constantly by these unelected criminals in Brussels? Why is Hungary there? I don't know, man. Hungarian people should really think about it. What the hell is going on, man? They are part of the organization that acts as some sort of a quasi-state and harasses their country on a regular basis and assaults their country on a regular basis. Why are they still part of this nonsensical EU? I don't know. anyways, it's up to Hungarian people, by the way. Maybe they like it. I don't know. Meanwhile, dear friends, I reported today on my Telegram and Twitter X page that delegations from the US and Iran have begun a fifth round of indirect negotiations in Oman, mediated by Omani officials. US delegation led by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Iranian delegation headed by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. And let's hope sides will manage to find the common ground and de-escalate, although chances of that is almost zero, because seems like US is demanding complete dismantlement of nuclear facilities in Iran that are engaged in enrichment of uranium, and Tehran is saying that this is a red line. They cannot agree on that, to dismantle these facilities. So if US is not going to compromise, or Iran for that matter, then I don't know how they're gonna find their common ground. And after all, I'm quite sure, dear friends, that US is not honest in these talks, and US is just taking time with these talks to prepare military operation against Iran. And once Washington thinks that Pentagon is ready to take action, I think US will pull out from these talks. They are just taking time, by the way. I want to be wrong on that, but I mean, everything that is happening in and around Iran on the matter of Iran-US relationships, Iran-Israel relationships, I mean, literally everything says to me that clearly preparations are on the way to attack Iran on part of Israel, on part of US, and a number of other countries that are allies of Israel and US. So therefore, I'm not really optimistic that peace will prevail in the Middle East, but I mean, let's hope I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something there. And I guess many people in Iran also understand perfectly well that war is coming. And we have this quite a strong statement from Iranian leaders that that US US will face a new Vietnam and Afghanistan if they will attack Iran. So the general staff of the Iranian armed forces have threatened the US, United States, with the kind of new Vietnam and Afghanistan if Washington makes mistakes in the Middle East. US outrage in the region will, in any case, turn into a new Vietnam or Afghanistan for them. The statement published by the IRNA news agency said the general staff of the Iranian armed forces also promised to respond to threats or erroneous actions, whatever that means. So, well, basically, Iran is saying that they are ready for war and they are ready to obliterate whomever will attack them. Okay. Unfortunately, region is very close to massive escalation. Meanwhile, RIA Novosti is reporting that Putin declared the reliability and effectiveness of the Russian military products. He was talking about military-industrial complex today, and I have some key points from his statements. Let's go through some details here, and I will end this news segment on this. So Vladimir Putin spoke at the meeting of the Commission on Military Technical Cooperation. He noted the quality, reliability, and effectiveness of the Russian military products. And there are key statements from Russian president. Military technical cooperation is a strategically important area. The Russian military industrial complex continues to operate in an enhanced mode. Defense enterprises generally fulfill their export obligations in 2024, which is a good deal, by the way, which demonstrates that Russian military industrial complex is well capable of not just delivering to Russian armed forces, but also to fulfill their export obligations. Russia continues to remain among the top 5 arms exporters in the world. The main goal of the military-industrial complex remains to meet the needs of the Russian army for conducting military operations. Interest in Russian defense industry products is growing. The Russian experience of conducting special military operation is being closely studied by their both politicians and army commands abroad, understandably so. This is, well, that's what modern warfare is, by the way. And I don't think anybody was expecting that things going to go down in a way that it did in the zone of special military operation. I mean, drones are playing massive role. Artillery is back as a god of war, as it called. And there are many nuances that I don't think any armed forces in this world were ready for. And of course, experience will be studied. Most types of weapons and equipment are being rapidly and constantly improved, which increases their characteristics. Russia should consider the development of military technical cooperation as an element of the technological development of their army and the navy. And Putin also stated that it is necessary to strengthen position in the arms export market, which is gradually happening, and Russia is always among top countries when it comes to arms sales because, Russian weapons, it's historically, I mean, Soviet era weapons and now Russian weapons, they are in high demand for their effectiveness. And this is it, dear friends. Quite interesting statements from Russian president here, and well, this is it for the news segment. And as I said in the beginning, I have this question from Yaroslav Pelicek. He left this question on Patreon. So question is, what about Armata tank infantry fighting vehicle family? They weren't on their recent victory parade. I heard somewhere that they are too expensive to produce and that offer only little shift with their comparison to modernized Soviet equipment. Are they being used on the battlefield? Well, quite stuff to unpack here. Well, they are expensive, by the way. Armatas, it is true that Armata tank and also infantry fighting vehicle based on Armata was not demonstrated during this recent Victory Day parade. And I also have heard that this equipment is quite expensive, and therefore this is one of the reasons why serial production have not begun yet of these vehicles. But there is also other reports in open sources, and this is just speculations, by the way. We should keep that in mind because this detailed information about this equipment is classified, so no one knows. We can only speculate, right, on the matter. And so one of the reasons that there is no serial production yet is that it's quite expensive. And another is what I heard, by the way, and what I see in open sources as a speculation, that there are some technical issues still with their gearbox, for example, of this system. Also, Armata, when it comes to Armata tank, by the way, reports are that gun, 150 millimeter gun, that's supposed to be on this tank is not yet ready. So some testing is still going on. So this is one of the reasons why there is some delay, right? Eventually, according to reports, this tank should have 150 millimeter gun, by the way, not 125 that it has right now. I mean, when you have seen this tank on the parades or during demonstrations, there's a 125 millimeter gun on it. But based on a project, it should have 150 millimeter gun, which is still, according to some speculations, in the development. And that might be one of the reasons also why there is no serial production yet. And by the way, I mean, you also have a good point that even though Armata, both tank and infantry fighting vehicle produces, I mean, gives a much more, incomparably more safety to a crew in case of tank, and to not just crew, but also to 8 or 10 troopers in case of infantry fighting vehicle. I mean, even though these vehicles providing better protection, they are just too expensive, right? According to reports. And also right now, as far as I understand, military industrial complex is basically focused on already adapted and trialed and tested armored vehicles like BMP-3, T-90M tanker, T-80 tanks, and that sort of equipment, right? This is quite good equipment, by the way. T-90M is basically, I will say, even better than any Western tank if we take in account all their parameters, by the way: speed, agility, armor, maneuverability, firepower. I mean, T-90 can go in places that no Western equipment can go, Western tanks, because those Western tanks are just too heavy. I mean, like 20 tons heavier than T-90. Huge difference, isn't it? So therefore, right now, it definitely does make more sense to be focused on whatever equipment is already being tested and are good. And after special military operation, who knows? Maybe we will see serial production of Armatas also, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure about it, really. After all, there is a reason why this equipment was not shown on the parade. Maybe decision was already made to basically leave Armata as an experiment, and potentially Russian military industrial complex will try to build something new that will be cheaper, will have some elements of Armata tank, but will be cheaper, more simplified variant, and therefore more reliable. Because you remember what is the main issue with the Western equipment? Over-engineering. And in my opinion, Armata was a bit over-engineered, by the way. And this is never good, right? Recently, Rostec, I believe, issued a statement about Leopard 2 tanks, right? And one of the reasons, one of the critical flaws in the Leopard tanks was, you know what? Over-engineered equipment. Leopard tank relies too much on equipment that is based all around the tank, right? And if you strike this even turret of this tank with the explosive shell, you're not going to penetrate tank for sure. You're not going to penetrate the frontal armor of the Leopard 2, but you will destroy almost all equipment. And tank is basically becoming just a unusable scrap of metal, right? Because you cannot see nothing. You cannot range there. Make a range towards the distance towards the target. You cannot see nothing. Because almost all equipments are based all around this turret, isn't it? So one strike with a high explosive shell and that's it. Your crew is safe, okay, but they can do nothing with this tank that no longer can strike properly, no longer can do much, isn't it? So yes, Nitish Kumar is commenting right now, too many sensors. Yes, one of the flaws based on a report that I read is exactly that too many equipment all around the tank that play crucial role for tank's effectiveness, right? So if these sensors, if this equipment is destroyed, then tank crew don't really knows what to do. So this is my answer, dear friends. I don't even know what can I add to it. On the question, are they being used on the battlefield about Armatas? I don't know. There were some reports that Armatas were tanks, by the way, not infantry fighting vehicles, but Armata tanks were deployed on the battlefield. But this is not official statements. This is yet again speculations that we see on the internet. And in my personal opinion, I'm not sure these tanks were deployed. Because what for? Reason? Why would they throw it into battle when drones can definitely can take it out? Like $400 drones would potentially, like 5-10 of them would destroy this tank, right? So why would engineers will risk it? So I don't think tanks were deployed. And dear friends, I saw a question from Nitish Kumar. Even though today is not community chat, let me answer to this question. Does Su-57 got new engines? Nitish Kumar is asking, and yes, experimental engines have been already placed on a number of Su-57s that are participating in these studies, and even videos are circulating with their different nozzles on Su-57, and reports are that these different nozzles are on a new engine. So therefore, most likely, new engines have been developed and are in the testing phase. And once this test will be finalized, probably all Su-57s will be equipped with these new engines. And dear friends, there was no more questions through PayPal, Boosty, or any other platform. No rant. And therefore, I will end this live stream now. I will just remind you, if I may, that if you want to support my work and this project, you can do it through several means. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. If you ask me, of course, I would say that I would prefer more people to subscribe to my Patreon page, because Patreon allows me to know with what kind of resources I'm operating with for a month on a monthly basis. So it's a good help in that regard, because when it comes to donations, you never know. I mean, yesterday, today, not a single donation for that matter, for example. With donations, you just never know. But on Patreon and Boosty, you can have more or less good understanding of the funds that you can rely on for next month. Anyways, dear friends, as I said, all the links for support is on this video description box and in the pinned comment. When it comes to programming, tomorrow I was thinking to take a day off, but I don't know. Maybe I will make a live stream somewhere in the middle of the day. And when it comes to Wednesday, we will have a traditional community chat on Wednesday. I cannot tell you time right now, but let's do some experiment. Maybe somewhere middle of the day also on Wednesday. Of course, I will let you know upfront about upcoming live streams. So thank you very much, dear friends. Have a wonderful day, great upcoming weekend, and take care. Bye for now. Oh, Sunday. Sorry, dear friends. Anna, my wife, is telling me now that I said Wednesday, Sunday, of course. Community chat is on Sundays. So have a great day, dear friends. Great weekend, and take care.